Gentlemen, this week on Spirits Month, we're going to have a theme, I think. The theme is going to be big bourbons. That is, bourbons with a very high proof. In this particular case, all the bourbons we're going to taste this week are going to be over 110 proof. So, in other words, that's 55% alcohol. So, to kick off episode 19 of Karl's Spirit Month, we're going to start looking at Maker's Mark Cask Strength. That's right, Maker's Mark Cask Strength. And before we get into this bourbon, let's stop and thank our friends at Barrel 131 for sponsoring tonight's episode. They are still doing curbside orders and pickup, so if you need a new pour, go ahead and give our friends at Barrel 131 a call. And go ahead and tell them Karl sent you. It won't do anything to your price. It may make it go up, but tell them I sent you anyway. Maker's Mark Cask Strength is, of course, a product of the famed Maker's Mark Distillery at Star Hill Farm in Loretto, Kentucky. And that, in turn, is owned by Beam Suntory, the parent company of the Beam products. Previously, we reviewed a barrel pick from Mary Jane's. That's their private select line. And that one came in at 108.5 proof, if I remember correctly. So this one's going to have just a little bit more kick to it. But the difference here is also going to be that there are no staves that have been added to the barrel that would affect the finish. This is just a pure bourbon, no stave finish behind it, like that private select usually gets. The idea behind a cask strength or a barrel strength bourbon is that it's supposed to give you kind of the tasting experience that you would get if you were standing in a rick house and tasting bourbon directly out of the barrel. No water has been added to cut the alcohol. It's just supposed to be a taste of the distiller's art. So this Maker's Mark Cask Strength, 70% corn, so fairly high corn, 16% red winter wheat. Remember, Maker's is a wheated bourbon, and that makes it typically a little smoother than those that have the rye. And then the leftover percentage, 14% malted barley. This particular bottle, and each of them are a little bit different, but this bottle comes in at 111.3 proof. There is no age statement here, but the rumor around the dark corners of the interweb says it's around 6 years. So in the glass, it has a really great medium copper color. I'm a big fan of that particular color. It just looks like what I think bourbon should look like. It's got a really neat color to it. It's got really neat sugar lines. It just sticks on the glass. And I wanted to make a note on this. I did go ahead and add a little bit of water to this, not to cut the alcohol, but to help the flavors unfold. Now, how much water did I use? I used 3 drops. That's literally 3 drops of water. And they weren't big drops. They were small drops of water that I added in. And it really helps those flavors kind of unfold a little bit more than if you drink it totally neat. I don't normally put water in bourbons, but sometimes I do just to see what other flavors are there. I think this one particular bourbon really helps having just a little bit of water there to help that flavor really pop. You don't have that rye spiciness, so the flavors are a little bit more subtle sometimes. And that water is going to help bring those out. So, nose on this. I don't think we've done nose yet, have we? Is really, really oaky to start out with. And that's not a bad thing. I love the smell of that oak. But I also am getting maybe some toffee, kind of like a toffee bar that's not quite opened yet. You can still kind of smell it. It's very faint. And I also get like some some toasted nuts on this. And it's a really smooth nose. There's a hint of alcohol, but it's very, very faint. It doesn't overwhelm you as you might think that a high proof bourbon would do. And it has a sweetness to it. And that's where that toffee, I think, is really coming in. For those of you who are off-put by the thought of 110, or excuse me, in this case, what is 111.3 proof? Don't be. This is a very smooth bourbon. Lots of caramel. That toasted nuts that I smelled a while ago is very much on the taste here. I can also get corn on this. It's not a bad thing. I can just get a little corn taste. I'm also getting some of those darker fruits again, and those are the ones I can't really explain well, but they're dark fruit taste. And as well, there's maybe something that I'm going to call molasses in here for sweetness. I think that's what I was trying to describe the other night on the Weller Special Reserve, and I called it a field of hay that had been laying in the sun. I think that's where I was going with that. It's more of a molassesy smell or taste to it. I also get a little bit of leather on this. Yeah, right on the tip of the tongue, I'm getting a little bit of leather here. Again, that's not off-putting to me, but perhaps for others it might be. The finish is long and smooth. It really is. It's sweet and spicy. The spice hits you first right on the front, and then it runs right into bourbon goodness. It's got a lot of nice woody notes. It's got a lot of sweetness. I think that's that molasses taste coming in, maybe the corn taste too. Some woody notes there. But you get that nice warm chest feel as well. It's just a really pleasant, easy to sip, high proof bourbon. So overall, what do I think? I think this is a really good bourbon. In many ways, this tastes a lot like a regular old Maker's Mark. But at the same time, it doesn't taste like regular old Maker's Mark. It has the same flavors, but everything's bigger. It's deeper. All those flavors take a bigger note than they do in a regular Maker's Mark drink. I think the layers are significantly more complex. I don't think I'm developed enough to tell you what those are, but I think there are deeper things here than you would find in a regular bottle of Maker's Mark. I think the best way to describe this is just a powerful sip of Kentucky bourbon goodness. It really is. It's a really good Maker's Mark bourbon. I really like this. This is good. I've always kind of said that Maker's 46 was my favorite out of the Maker's Mark line. But I think this one would really give them a run for their money. And so I'm going to give this bourbon a 4.5 stars on the Karl scale. So that's my rating on the Maker's Mark Cask Strength. Again, I want to thank our friends at Barrel 131 for helping us out. Especially with this bottle. And as always, guys, you know the drill. Stay safe, peace, and happy pours.